Welcome to episode 75, and in this week we are delving into Star Wars and religion. Therefore, listeners, this is all our own personal views and opinions. Stay tuned for more. Hello, listeners, and good morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever in the galaxy you are listening from, and welcome to another fantastic episode from Explore the Force. As always, joining me is my co-host and all-round legend, all the way from Kansas in America. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Jimmy.
Howdy.
How's your week been, bud?
Been good. We had our first weekend off for like almost 2 months from cross country. We're getting ready to gear up, and I thought I could get all this stuff done. And of course, we filled it with family time stuff. We got to go see my nephews play soccer, which we hadn't been able to see all season, and did a few
Nice.
other things. So I literally got nothing accomplished that I wanted to get done, but it was good to be able to spend some time with family and just for
Good.
me and the wife to decompress a little bit before the grind of league, regionals, and hopefully state in a couple weeks. How
Nice.
about you, man?
Nice. Yeah, normal jogging. Week at work. No change much. However, I do have lots of good force encounters, which I'll go into on that
I can't
segment.
wait to
But
hear
yeah,
some of that.
oh mate, it's gonna be a long one, but it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So the week at work, and then this weekend again, another force encounter. But I've been away at Echo Base Live, so more on that. And just talking and meeting fellow Star Wars enthusiasts, and I even met Mido as well.
Hmm.
Always a pleasure to talk to him and some lads from the Generation Skywalker podcast as well. Always good to talk to like-minded Star Wars fans across the universe. And speaking of Star Wars fans across the universe, last Sunday we mentioned we'd hit 900. This Sunday, I think we're at 993, 94, I think it is off the top of my head. So I do apologise that I may have missed a few names. However, out of the 90 odd that I've missed, I think we've got about 70 or 80 names, probably a few less to be fair. So again, it's down to Jimmy. Here we go.
All right. Again, first and foremost, I apologize in advance. I'm not trying to mess these up, but some of them are hard, man. They're not, your handles and things like that. They're tough. So I'm looking at one now that I'm real nervous about. So first and foremost, we got Ross Beedman. We got Ro Ninja, Riley, Frankie Ramos, the Phantom _ fanboy, Markuska, Riley Anthinoso, Athana, RJ, Falker 3, Magnus Falker Sergi Dovnar, Baron Drott, SWB Field, Manuel, Wes Robinson, SC Parts Guru, Trey, and Frankie, Jacob Chapman, Leroy, Dean Keaty, John Stafford, Lily, TT Bowman, Omar De Leon, John Hendrickson, Sandeep Sidhu, SLH215, Sarah Hubban Orr, Michael Smallwood, Samurai _ Kaizuko 86. This one's in Japanese, I believe, and I cannot read that. MKH _ Cardi, April Nichols, Joel Kello, Catherine Sanchez, Matthew James Zamora, Philip Dankowski, the Dread Samurai, which I love that one.
That's a good
Kevin
one. I
Ford,
like
Maria Lulame 2, Maria Lastra Lucina, Amy Nicole Unro, Donovan Wisdom _ Lost Kaijin _ Nikolai Lojek, Raymond C. Voigt, fourth, William Johnson, Michelle Kearney, Joe Overton Penn, who was just on our show last week, Victor Manuel Brios Barra, Big Paul Becomes, Paul Seth, Sadi Recep, Eclipse, Cat Plays, Vincent McMillan, Laramendi, Brian Ortiz 312001, Reindeer.40623227. Well, that sounds like Star Wars right there. Crix Hagen, Siegfried Hagenville, Lewis Latham, Brian J. Brule, Goulin Droid, Patty Derrick, Travel by Heart 2.0, Maximilian Colby, Butler, Aaron Alton, Scorrell, Christian Haas. Hey, it's one of my swimmers. Photo Studio Express Diversion, Jonah Aronson, David Bednarkic, Ivan Diaz Campos, RI _CH4739, DK74, Javi Goats, Noah Grimley, Miss M. Shane Miller 72, I'm not even going to try that one. T Herc 706, Michael Rosso, Australia, Colton Mays 26241620, Universal _ cosplay, Daniel Martinez Jr., Marta Poe, Pablo Rojas, Lorix 58, John Kyle McCullen, Storm Shadow 507, and Shawa Will.
Awesome, great job. While Jimmy goes and gets a drink, we've had a few more join us as well tonight. I'll just go spiel off as well. We've got Edward Barfield, DJ Archie, Alvin Math, Adam Crocker, and a reason that I'm spilling those last few off is because we're at 996. So as of now, Sunday the 13th and 10th of October, almost midnight here in the UK. I have no idea what time it is for Jimmy. About 4 o'clock, is it, in the afternoon?
5:30.
5:30. Oh, almost nowhere near. Yeah, we're almost at 1,000 again. So a massive thank you to everybody that has supported the show, is following, listening, the comments, the feedback, the photos, everything. The community is growing rapido. Again, like I mentioned, I've met so many people this weekend. I can't wait to share some of the stories and some of the things they've been saying about the podcast. It is out there. If you want to join, Explore the Force, all one word. We're on Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitter, TikTok, Blue Sky now as well, and YouTube. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, Explore the Force, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube. It's much easier for me to read when it's scrolling across the bottom of that screen. Makes me sound a lot better than I actually am at this part of the show. So yeah, massive thank you to everybody that has joined. So let's head into this week's Force Encounters. Okay, so I've got 2 biggies. So like I mentioned at the start of the show, we went away. I was at work. We went away and we went to a forge place, old forge shop in Wales, where I'm based. And essentially we walked in, went to the shop to sign in and say that we'd arrived. And on the wall was a picture of John Favreau with the staff there. And oh my gosh, there's an ingot, a Beskar ingot there, his signature, and like some of the staff people. I spent more time talking to them than I did actually learning how to forge stuff. In the end, I made a meat cleaver. It looks more like a boomerang, but it's a meat cleaver. But yeah, wow, unreal. What an experience straight away as soon as I got there. Just seeing that. They got invited to the premiere of The Mandalorian Season 3 as well, because they did some of the props there. John himself was at the forge, forging things. Yeah, just an amazing experience. And then the next big thing was Echo Base Live. Again, a massive Star Wars event. A massive shout out to Wayne Totty and the crew there at Redditch, putting on such an amazing event. There was a whole host of guests. I am not kidding. There were some amazing people there. Long story short, you had a ticket. You sat on a table with about 10 people. On that table was a celebrity guest who had connections with Star Wars, from actors to stunt personnel, whoever. It was Endor themed as well, and I was lucky enough to have Kieran Shaw on my table. He's had multiple roles in the Star Wars universe. One that springs to mind now, he was one of the Ewoks called Bruta, who was doing the drums on the Star Wars Stormtrooper helmets on Return of the Jedi. You know, when they're all celebrating, and you see one of them doing that. Yeah, he was doing that. He's got a whole host of other roles as well within Star Wars. Incredible guy. Loads of awesome stories. Speaking to him and also his colleague as well, Kit. They are looking to come on the show. Don't know when, because he's currently filming in Sweden. So stay tuned for more about that. Again, I mentioned it. We spoke to some guys from Generation Skywalker, a whole host of podcasts about vintage toys and collectors. Again, those guys are going to be coming on the show as well, because they're keen to get their name out there again. Start talking about their collections and their edition stuff. Also spoke to Max Rebro band member. Incredible music, all Star Wars themed. Again, super keen to get on the show as well. Lots of awesome Star Wars goodness. However, the big takeaway, if you're still with me, is we won the quiz. That's right, we had a little quiz on the tables. It's a load of normal quizzes, like names of stuff. I actually contributed quite a bit, to be fair, so I have got a claim to fame. Mrs. Copestake was there, didn't contribute, but she did look good, and she even said that, which I found absolutely hilarious. But was all presented with little Star Wars Lego figures that held like a Lego trophy as well. Absolutely fantastic. So yeah, just going to finish it there. Massive, massive well done, and thank you to Wayne, Totty, and the crew for setting us up an awesome event on the Friday, and then on the Saturday was the collectors fair. Again, loads of collector stuff which you were able to purchase. What about you, Jimmy?
Well, yeah. First of all, I love the videos you made, the photos. It's incredible. I want to hear more about it. I want to fly over there and have dinner next year with you.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So my week's been pretty good. Again, once a lot of little things, but my Java sail barge came in this week.
Oh,
So
nice.
real excited about that. That thing is real pretty. All those little minifigs, and then I got to go back on. It has been a while. I got to hang out with Patrick from Poptography, and I got to hang out with Chris from Seriously Star Wars, and we dove into the new line of Ahsoka Funko Pops that are coming out. Got to chat for about an
Nice.
hour. They have a pretty fun game on their episode where they take the Funko Pop and they kind of black it out so all you can see is the silhouette, and you got to try to guess
Okay.
which Funko
Nice.
Pop it is. Patrick kicked my butt up and down, all over the place. I got a few right. My biggest thing was I keep mine in the box, so I don't get to see them quite the same way. But yeah,
Nice.
Patrick
Okay.
was
Yeah.
on fire. It was awesome. We just had a great chat. Talked a lot of Star Wars.
Good.
Two really good guys in the Star Wars. I got to fill in for Lex, who's been on our show before as well. She was moving, starting a new chapter in her life, which is pretty exciting. And she's safe
Yes.
from the tornado or from the storms down there, so that was good to hear. But it's always fun to catch up with those guys, and it's just
Yeah.
another reminder, kind of like what we're going to talk about here in a little bit, because our guest in the future, we met because of Star Wars. They did an
Yeah.
article about me and about our podcast here in the local news, and he reached out, and now he's on there. But yeah, I love Star Wars. I love that. I mean, the stuff, the connections you've made, the friends you've made.
Yeah.
It's such a cool
It's
thing, and I wish
incredible.
people would focus on that more than all the
Yeah.
nonsense. So
One
yeah, it
one
was a
hundred
great week
percent,
for me.
bro. Nice, nice, and that
Yeah,
does
so
remind me actually. It does remind me, mate. A massive shout out to Lex and congratulations with her new chapter in her
yeah,
life. So I know
absolutely.
she does listen. Massive congratulations from myself and Jimmy.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up our Force encounters for the week. Let's head over to Bat 2 and see what's coming out of there.
Okay, so big Star Wars news for gamers like myself. Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles is back in 2025, being remastered for all consoles, Switch, PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Super excited about this. I absolutely loved this game as a kid. Unfortunately, I actually lost friends through this because I remember screaming at my friend because he couldn't keep up because we had to use the same screen. I remember it because I'm sure he was. Could be any of the Jedi's as well. He was Plo Koon. I think I was Obi-Wan Kenobi or something. But there's bits we have to jump, and he kept lagging behind and dying, so he cost us all our lives. But yeah, big fan of that. I'm definitely going to be getting that for the Switch, as well as the remastered collection as well, because I want to get that pod racing on the go on the Switch
Yeah, I want to
as
get that
well.
pod racing game for sure.
Yeah, it looks
So
good.
you played this as a kid?
Yeah, it was on the PlayStation 1.
Okay. Wow. I think only I played on PlayStation 1 was like Madden or something like that. I think there's a Buffy the Vampire game I liked a lot. So
Nice, nice.
for the PlayStation 1. But
Go for it. Go for
speaking
it.
of Ahsoka, recently Natasha Leo Bordizo, who played Sabine Wren on the Ahsoka series, mentioned that filming on the series would already be underway come August 2025, with obviously Dave being tied up with the Mando things right now, but they still are on track. So that's exciting news to hear that, they'll
Yeah,
they'll film off that, and he's going to go. Hopefully, he's not too exhausted, or he's more inspired than ever, and he's going to be going in there and he's going to start the filming for the Ahsoka stuff, and I'm pumped for it.
yeah,
So
yeah. Same detail. Hopefully, though, he's not suffering from burnout. Because obviously, he's got, like you said, he's got a lot on his plate at the minute. Um, Little and often, I think, is the key at the minute for Star Wars. Little and often. Other big news though, Jimmy, we've had some badge art reveal, and
oh my
boy,
gosh.
do they look sweet. So we got a Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader one. There was a Mandalorian and Grogu one, and a Ahsoka one, and my personal favorite, the Yoda.
Yeah,
How awesome are
those
these?
spectacular. I will try to put them up on the YouTube version of this, but if you're listening on a podcast, just type it into your phone. Star Wars
Yeah,
Celebration 2025 badges. The artwork is phenomenal. I'm so excited to be going over there, and I don't usually worry about collecting badges, but I may have to try and
Yeah, I'm gonna get the
a few
poster with them all on. I am.
yes, that will be beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't expect it. I mean, even like the logo looks great for it, and it
unreal.
just continues. Like I can't wait for this experience.
Yeah, plus
So,
I'll be there.
um, and then of course we got more art to celebrate 10 years of amazing Marvel comics. They're releasing a new one shot called Star Wars: A New Legacy #1, which brings back many of the big hitters who have made Marvel Star Wars comics essential reading for the past 10 years,
Hmm.
including writers like Charles Soule, Jason Aaron, Kieran Gillen, artists Ramon Rosanna, Leonard Kirk, and Salva Espin. And on the cover has like Dr. Afra. It has, oh my gosh, his name is slipping. The guy from the
Is
Bounty
it
Hunter Guild.
Yeah,
Uh,
Cassandra? Is it Cassandra's on there as well?
I
There's
think
a
so.
wiki
The
on there.
cover, the art for it has a bunch of different characters,
Yeah.
smaller characters from Vance is his name. He's the one who's
Yes.
uh, upset with,
Cyborg or something.
yeah, like the cyborg s kind of guy.
Mm,
I have not
mm.
finished that, so I don't know what happens to him. But yeah, it looks cool. It's a one shot, just kind of paying homage. It'll be cool to see what they do with
Yeah.
it. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I started
Yeah.
reading the Ewok comic as well. It's been pretty cool. I don't want to give any spoilers, but it's after Return of the Jedi happens and Wicked's
Ah,
telling the
okay.
story, but then something happens. It's tying into they're doing a good job. So I know last week I was a little
All right.
disappointed, right?
Mm.
But the Ewoks in that battle of was it what is it called? Surgency Rising, the battle for
Yeah.
Jakku. Um, they're ramping up towards that. So I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was just going to be some like crazy like thing, but it actually is like beat for beat with that comic from last week. So pretty exciting, pretty cool. You should pick it up, and I'm excited to see where it goes and how they're going to tie it all in. So it's pretty
Nice.
fun.
Nice. Okay. Oh, so that wraps up this week's news. So today's main topic is the spirituality of Star Wars, and joining us today is another listener and an expert in the field. It's Pastor Lito Solorio.
Here I am.
Here he is.
Hello, Leo.
Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining us, Lito. Massive, massive thank you again. How are you this week? How's your day been?
Uh, it's been a full day. Church this morning, and then birthday parties, and then more church this evening. But a podcast in the midst of all that, which is my favorite part of the day after church. So this is good. This is good.
Nice, nice. Loving your little setup behind you as well, like your little picture you've got going there. A few collectibles as well, I've seen.
Yeah, and a storyboard from Empire Strikes Back.
Nice,
So
nice.
that's my I pulled it out of the safe just for you
Okay,
guys.
nice. More on that later. So, Leo, obviously, we know that you're a listener to the show. Again, as always, thank you for the support. Thank you for coming on. Tell us and the listeners a little bit about yourself.
So, grew up like a lot of people. I was born in 1983, the year of Return of the Jedi, and was always a big fan of Star Wars, but not like, I don't think it captured my attention until the special edition. I grew up with
Yep.
it, loved Star Wars. When it was re released, our family, my dad took a job. We lived in a pretty good sized city of Fresno, California. My dad took a job at a Christian camp, and I was angry because it was a small community. We had a lot of campers that would show up, but then they disappear. And we were there like 6 months, and I was just irritated. My dad's like, "Hey, we're gonna go to the movies. Star Wars comes out." I'm like, "I've seen Star Wars," but I felt like I watched it with a new lens. As I lived at this camp that I didn't want to live at, I identified with Luke Skywalker, who was stuck on Tatooine. So as I'm
Yeah.
watching the epic, iconic scene as he looks out to the twin suns, I felt I'm Luke Skywalker. Like that was just resonated with me. Literally the next day, like I was buying action figures. Even my very first action figure I ever bought, right here, eventually signed by Mark Hamill himself in person. That just became like my thing, my hobby. I still have well over 500 action figures. They're all in boxes now because I have children, and I'm nervous they're just going to rip them all open. And I've even thought about selling them because I'm like, they're not really collecting a lot much more value, but it is what it is. I love the thing. And my wife, I mean, she has when we met each other in high school at 15, I mean, my room was decked out with Star Wars everything, and she still dated me. I don't know why. But she was super loving and supportive. And then when Attack of the Clones came out, we were a senior in high school, and she went to the midnight premiere with me, and she was like, "Let's go have some
Awesome.
fun." And Revenge of the Sith was about to come out, and I had a local contest in Fresno. It was the San Joaquin Valley. It's pretty much anything as far south as Bakersfield, all the way up
Yep.
north, like Modesto, which is where George Lucas is from. And they had an ultimate Star Wars fan, and they were looking for somebody in the valley. And they had a contest with thousands of people. They dwindled it down to 3 people, myself and a member of the 501st. His name was Elvis Trooper. I haven't heard from him much lately, but I've run into him over the years, and people voted. Now, granted, this was a time when um, I don't think they like let you vote on Facebook today, like one vote a day, and it can track your
Yeah.
IP address. So it was a pretty open up thing, and I was a youth pastor, so I'm pretty confident hundreds of students voting for me every day, and I won. And I went to the world premiere of Revenge of the Sith, watched it with Mark Hamill. It was awesome. The whole experience.
Nice.
I look back, I'll find photos of it every once in a while that I've never
Oh,
posted
yes,
on my phone,
please.
and it was glorious. We're standing at the red carpet. There were some other celebrities from what was the big show back then, the OC.
Yeah,
Because of
yeah.
Oh,
this, they had world premieres all over. They had London, LA. Modesto is a bizarre one, but it's George Lucas's hometown.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they worked it in where it was a fundraiser too. You could buy a ticket, but it was well
Okay.
over $1,500 to go.
oh,
So people weren't all
Nice.
sitting. We saw Revenge of the Sith 2 weeks before the rest of the world.
Oh,
So my wife and I just had a blast. We had a steak dinner, and the whole gala event of it
that's
was
cool. I
blew
like
me
that.
away.
I
And
like
then in
that.
2011, they did another Star Wars fan contest. It was eBay. I entered an eBay contest and I won the Ultimate Star Wars fan for 2011 eBay. That's so obscure. I won a big screen TV surround sound system. The Blu-ray Star Wars discs had just come out. I won that,
Yeah.
and that was a lot of fun too. And I just shared my story about meeting Mark Hamill, and somehow that won.
Incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible. Not even
yeah.
6 minutes into the main show. We could just end it there on those bombshells.
yes.
There's a lot of fun story. I got a lot of fun Star Wars stories. I'll share more
Nice.
of those.
We'll get into them. We'll get into them.
Yeah. And then I think you had asked something else. My favorite movie, Empire Strikes Back, hands down. I think the uh, tumultuous ending that people weren't expecting. Oh, we're going to leave on a cliffhanger. It wasn't as common then. And I think you
Yeah.
see it now all the time with these TV shows and TV series where almost every episode has some like, uh-oh, what's going to happen next?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back literally kind of created that model. And of course, even before that, the episodic style of storytelling that George Lucas grew up with. I mean, that's where it originates from, I think, from a modern media era. But for me, I identified as Luke Skywalker as a young person. And
Yeah.
then as I became an adult and a minister, I've identified as Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I would say Luke and Obi-Wan both have such a deep relationship to what I watch.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, I know a lot of people didn't like him, but I was going through my own personal crisis of, am I worthy to be a pastor? Am I good enough to do this job? And you watch Luke Skywalker wrestle with his own, is the Jedi doing what's right?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
resonated to me at the right time. And then when Mandalorian came out and you see that scene where Luke is just completely overpowered in a good way, I was like, okay, like that's the hopeful, excited. Like I think every fan wanted to see that one, but because we
Yeah.
got Last Jedi, we were frustrated. But
Yeah.
then Mandalorian somehow like scratched the itch every fanboy wanted from Star Wars and Luke. So, but Obi-Wan, his consistency, I think, throughout all the films and even what they did with the Obi-Wan TV series also kind of gave that hopelessness. And then he
Yeah.
came through, and I'm hearing rumors of a new series. I hope they do it, because Obi-Wan, I think I like him the most because he's the one that he saw it throughout the end. He was consistent even in the doubt. He powered through. So yeah,
Brilliant.
those are my guys.
Brilliant. Great start to the show. You're smashing through these questions that we're going to ask you. So, yeah, you covered your favourite movie, Empire Strikes Back, always popular. And, yeah, hazard a guess, then your favorite character is definitely Obi-Wan Kenobi. Jimmy, take it into the main part then. What else we got for Pastor
All
Lito?
right. So, yeah, we're going to tackle this easy topic to talk about. One of the easier ones we've ever covered here on, for our 75th episode. We thought we would just go all in, but we're going to talk about the spirituality of Star Wars. And that can mean different things to everybody. We just kind of a little disclaimer, like Jack said earlier. Jack and I are not trying to influence anyone. It kind of goes into Pastor Lito's wheelhouse. He is trying to help and influence, but obviously you can tell from his experience, he's a big love for Star Wars. So it's why we brought him on for this topic. We kind of want to just give, a short stint. Where do we all stand with religion? And I'll start. I believe in the higher power. I told you this, Pastor Lito, sometimes I struggle with church, right? I believe in a higher power. I don't necessarily believe in the church. That's just kind of where I stand with, the things that happen and things like that. And so my experiences have not all been positive. So that's kind of where I stand. I'm
Yeah.
pretty open-minded about stuff. I'll just keep it at that. What about you, Jack?
Yeah, I'm pretty much almost the same. I'm open-minded. Respect for whatever people believe in doesn't really bother me, if I'm honest. I'm not a massive atheist. Like I said, I'm open-minded. I don't believe in anything else. I just believe that, you make your own fate, you make your own life, so to speak. But yeah, I'm open-minded. Again, more than happy to talk, debate about it. But like Jimmy said as well, this is a safe place to talk. We're just trying to look at the spirituality with Star Wars. It's just our personal views and opinions. We're not putting anything out there as musts or they ours. And it's great that, obviously we're all different sides of, I say the coin, there's three of us, but we've all got different views with this straight away. Obviously, Pastor Lito, I'm going to ask you where you stand. Pretty confident, I know, but
I'm an atheist, boys. If the mask comes off Scooby-Doo style, he's been an atheist the whole time. No, I'm kidding. At a young age, I wanted to be a comedian actor. I didn't always set out to be a pastor.
yeah,
And every church skit, I could be in, I did. And then as I got older, even my wife has been in several movies as an extra out in Hollywood because we didn't live too far from there. And she's worked with, you know, Jennifer Coolidge and Julia Stiles and some really cool names. And I've gotten to
nice.
sometimes go down to LA with her while she was doing some of that stuff, auditions and everything. And we'd run into celebrities and it was just fun. But for me, as I kind of started developing my own personal views, it leaned more into Christianity. But I still struggle with religion. I tell people all the time, the church is the Bible describes it as, the next step that God would want there to be this kind of relationship to him through the
Yeah,
good things. There's a lot of messed up churches. There's times I've been a part of a church. There's times I've messed up and I didn't represent the church as best as I could. So I think we hear and see a lot more dialogue about church hurt.
yeah,
I got people that come into my church all the time. They go, man, I'm dealing with church hurt. I had a couple I didn't talk to too long ago. They came from some church hurt. And I said, listen, my objective is to just be a safe place where you can kind of rebuild trust, not necessarily with the church, but with Jesus, because the church does make mistakes. But
yeah,
I was in
yeah,
fourth grade and had some positive experiences with the church. Our family had fallen on hard times and they
yeah,
showed up.
yeah,
So I know that people have hardships and struggles with it, especially with organized religion. But I think Jesus did too. The Bible shows him being somebody that pushes against, rituals that don't stay in connection relationally with God. And I
yeah,
think that's something that just kind of is
yeah.
revealed through that as you study it. It's
Well,
fun.
yeah. If religion was easy, everyone would be doing it, as with most things, with stars. So my next question as well, and this is more for an education piece as well. It's quite a good question. Is there a difference? Do we think between religion and spirituality? What do you reckon? Let's go for you, Jimmy.
Yes, I think there is. I think your spirituality is like the way you kind of choose to live your life.
Yeah,
I think that religion is like the organization of that. Like I think for me, so I do think that they're different from one another. We'll talk about the Jediism and uh, the temple of the Jedi Order, and I think those would fall more in spirituality than an
yeah,
actual religion, given that I don't have like an actual deity or anything like that. But yeah, spirituality as far as like how you live your life, being a good person, that kind of stuff. For me, that's how I see the difference. Religion is just like the organization part side of it.
Yeah.
Are you Catholic? Are you Jewish? Are you Muslim? Are you Buddhist? Are you Taoist? Like those different things is where I see. That's how I see the difference for me, because
Yeah.
most of them are all the same. Be a good person, do good things, live a good life, go upstairs. So,
Yeah.
but that's me.
Yeah. What about you, Pastor Lito? Let's hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Educate us. What is the difference?
I do think there is a difference between the two, but I do think we're naturally spiritual people. I think most people would find a connection to, you know, doing what's right. I think we internally have this. We do have a broken moral compass, but I think internally we have a tendency to kind of see, man, this doesn't sit well with me. When we see someone hurting or in danger, there's a spirit within us that says this is wrong, this isn't right, and in regards to spirituality, I think people are all wanting to connect in some way. But yeah, religion has that view that this is kind of how we process that, depending on
Hmm.
what group we fall under. And it's easy for all of those groups to, depending who your key leader is, it can get sideways too. I think
Yeah.
the key to any religious group is humility. Even me, I love what I do for telling people about good news stuff, but there's a tendency for people to want to idolize me. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Don't put me on a soapbox. Let's put the Lord on the soapbox and honor him. And that's tricky. I mean, there's a lot of different religious groups that
Oh, yeah.
might take advantage of people, and we got to be careful of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like the common theme is, like we've said, spirituality is people doing good things, and like it's been said about the Jedi and the Sith, it's
Yeah,
easier to go down the dark side, to do not worse things. It's easier to be bad than it is to be good,
sure.
definitely. And I think the connection as well is, and I've been in those situations where everyone needs something to believe in, whether it's spiritual things, religion things, or even the Force, itself. Yeah. What else we got, Jimmy?
All right, so we've got some clips and things like that we're going to talk about. We're going to work ourselves into Star Wars here, but as kids, I don't think we see it. Obviously with the podcast, we start breaking down Star Wars. We're looking at things. I mean, we're looking at this from the spirituality of Star Wars. Um, is Star Wars, because we have a lot of things. We have good versus evil. We have we have Anakin's birth is kind of similar to some things, different things like that. The battle between good and evil, your family, that kind of stuff. Is Star Wars religious? Like, do you feel that? And after you guys say that, I'll play George's clip so you can see where he stands, and then we can talk about that a little bit. But like, I mean, people always complain that you shouldn't have real world issues in Star Wars, but like right off the bat, I mean, we do. We have good versus evil. That's obviously
Yeah.
one of the biggest things we've got going on in the world. It's like we've talked about. Do you guys think that the Star Wars movies, the Force, is like a religious thing? So is the Force the religion, or is it a power? Is it Marvel versus So
Yeah.
what do you guys
Good question.
think?
Good.
It's a
Good
tough one.
question.
I will warn everyone too. I putting this together have struggled where to take this, and we talked a little bit off air, and we're just going to try to keep it the best we can, but it's pretty wide open, and we'll do the best we can answering some of these
Well,
questions.
one thing, people don't always know. I mean, growing up, I think people thought youth ministry, for instance, is just hiring a guy that wants to have pizza with a bunch of students and make some jokes. And there's layers, a lot deeper layers to it. In Bible college, we studied a thing, the author's intended meaning. When we read the text that we preach out of, for instance, we want to understand it from its context. And I do think George Lucas, any director. My son wants to be a movie director one day, and I'm like, go. As long as you invite me to the Academy Awards, I'll sing for you, son. And I've even thought about writing my own fan fiction, and I thought maybe Star Wars. I'm like, maybe I create my own new spiritualities, battle, good versus evil kind of stuff, and have the religious undertones. But that's what I think. George Lucas, I think if I remember correctly, he originally went into philosophy in one of his studies, and he was fascinated by all. Oh, it was a girlfriend I think he had for a while that handed him some philosophy books, and it started getting the gears turning for him when he was in his 20s, just about world religion. So I'm fascinated because I've heard some interviews of him where, he doesn't really talk about the religious side of it, and other times he really pushes it. So I feel like
Yeah.
you might say one thing one day and say something the other day. That's people. It's not a big deal. But George Lucas's vision for Star Wars, it's really, he's the author. How he viewed
Yeah.
it. You want to ask him, like, okay, was this, Buddhism? Was this Christianity? Was this that? And nitpick all those things. But I think the beauty of that, and many storytellers, J.R.R. Tolkien with Lord of the Rings, C.S. Lewis, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, one of my favorite children's books that I read to my kids when they were little, is that there are religious undertones. Now,
Mm.
J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were, very much Christian individuals. C.S. Lewis didn't become a Christian until later in his life because of, smoking cigars and having whiskey with J.R.R. Tolkien. And they would just share their love for this beautiful storytelling narrative. And in the process, C.S. Lewis, he was like, you know what, I think I want to be a Christian. And then he writes this book that has, the lion represents, God and Jesus and all that stuff. But I
Yeah.
think even George Lucas, his is all about a bunch of things that have a little hint of everything, undertones. And I like it.
Yeah.
I've preached sermons where I'm like, oh man, do or do not, there is no try. This matches with this verse or whatever,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's so much stuff there. And he says, I don't believe it. And he says, well, you didn't believe it because you didn't do it right. You didn't have the faith.
Yeah.
They give this beautiful picture. For me as a preacher of Christianity, I'm like, that's great. That's gold. I could use that. But there's other times midichlorians don't really preach
It's a good
well,
point.
and that's where
Yeah.
I kind of wish, as I love Star Wars, but there's parts of it where I'm like, I like the mystery of the Force, and it felt like
Yes.
Episode 1 started wanting to define things a little bit more, and
Mm.
I'm like, we don't need the definition, because
No.
when it was more open ended, I think it could fit into a lot of different religious categories, which didn't
Yeah.
bother me if it was Christian or not. Just that
Yeah.
you could see those things in them, dependent on who you were and what you
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, Pastor, as well, by saying it's got a lot of different undertones to it. So, sort of answering Jumin's question, in my view, I don't think that the Force is a religion. I think it is a power, a higher power, so to speak. Han Solo clearly states that, when he says you don't believe in all that voodoo stuff or whatever he says, sorry.
Pokey religion.
That's it, pokey religion. Um, but yeah, I totally agree. I think that's why it's so successful and why it really does appeal to everybody in the real world. There's no direct influences, so to speak. There's no instant connections. It is all still quite a mystery, and it's underlying tones as well. So even though it doesn't connect to, let's say, a specific religion, it still manages to connect to a community, and it brings everybody from all walks of life, religions, together to make this amazing Star Wars community that we have got. So,
All right. Yeah, so the clip I'm going to show you guys, it's like, I think it's right before the release of The Phantom Menace. And so
mhm.
you'll be able to tell from the camera and the view and things like that. And just to give you guys, and kind of what Lito, like what you said, like George has said things. I mean, he's still, like, we all pronounce things one way, and then he'll go on a show and he'll say something
Yeah,
completely off the wall. And you're like, well,
Yes.
how come we're not saying it that way or whatever? But at the last Comic Con I was at, Ahmad Best was there, and he had just come from like George's birthday or something. They had this big long talk, and it was awesome. And from what George says in this clip, it's very different than what Ahmad Best said that he and George had just talked about. So you have to take this with a grain of salt. This is like 1999 or 2001. So 2001, they what 1, 3, and 5, right? Is when those prequels
yeah,
90,
came out.
yeah, 99,
Oh,
2002, and 2005 were the three
okay.
episodes, one, two,
yeah,
three.
All right. So here we go.
The fact that so many people have interpreted Star Wars as being profoundly religious.
I don't see Star Wars as profoundly religious. I see Star Wars as taking all of the issues that religion represents and trying to distill them down into a more modern and more easily accessible construct that people can grab onto to accept the fact that there is a greater mystery out there. When I was 10 years old, I asked my mother, I said, well, there's only one God. Why are there so many religions? And over the years, I've been pondering that question ever since. And it would seem to me that the conclusion I've come to is that all the religions are true. They just see a different part of the elephant. A religion is basically a container for faith. Faith is the glue that holds us together as a society. Faith in our culture, our world, our whatever it is that we're trying to hang on to, is a very important part of I think allowing us to remain stable, remain balanced.
All right. So let's unpack that.
Yeah.
Again, right before the Phantom Menace came out, and I mean, I've had experience already where it sounds like he's kind of, he's all over the map a little bit. I mean, like you said, though, like you ask me my favorite Star Wars movie, I'll say this one day, and I'll say, well, usually I always say Solo, but so
Is
Lito, what
Solo your favorite? I want to clarify before we move on.
Solo is? Yeah, I
Mm.
don't know what it is about it. It shouldn't be. I've realized that, given around
Well,
the
just to
70s.
clarify, I've been playing Star Wars Outlaws. Can I say religiously? I haven't played it in the last 2 weeks, but when it came out, I was playing it a ton, and even texted some friends that I knew would enjoy it, saying, "You got to play this game." People are hating
Yeah.
it on the internet, but it's great, and it caused me to go back to Solo, and I appreciated Solo differently watching it, and it's probably only the second time I ever watched it,
Oof.
um,
You
and I enjoyed it.
every time you watch it, you'll find something new. Like I've seen it a million times. It's my go-to movie when I'm bummed out.
Sure.
Um, but like I just picked up something new the last time I'm like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even hear that the first
Yeah.
97 times I've watched it. So, but yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying Outlaws. Jack and I both have been like loving it. Just haven't had the time to play it recently. So, but what do you guys think about this? What George says? I mean, is that a cop out answer where he's just trying to be PC, or do you believe him? I mean,
Yeah, he sort of reiterates what we've literally just said, in my opinion, and I'm very much like George, uh, in the way that even when as a kid you're getting taught about all these different religions, and it is confusing because as a kid, you go to school, etc. Especially back in, I say, my day, the 90s, it was just like one God. That's all I really knew about until really started to get it taught a bit more religious education in our secondary school. So totally see where he's coming from. But again, I think it's one of the massive strengths about Star Wars, like I said earlier, is there's no direct link to any religion at all. It is underlying elements of different ones. What about you, Pastor?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think when George, he's such a fascinating director because there's certain individuals that, I think George has a clear view of what Star Wars is as a whole. I mean, he's got pages and pages of things that none of us have ever read, that we'll
Mm.
never read probably unless it's in a museum one day. Belongs in a museum. Sorry, had to do the Raiders Lost Ark. So part of me wonders if, all of his upbringing and philosophy just kind of came out through that. So
Mm.
it kind of shapeable, mendable to kind of fit whatever kind of backing you fall into, and I've been blessed to
Yeah.
go to places like India where I've sat with Hindu people and talked about their faith and listened, and it's just every culture's different, but I think that's what I even like about Star Wars is you see a diversity across these galaxies of creatures and aliens. And so, I mean, even Rise of Skywalker, when they go to I'm not going to remember the name of the planet because Rise of the Skywalker is probably my least watched Star Wars film, not intentionally, but they go to that planet and there's that huge festival and everyone's dancing and all that. And I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
oh, so neat. Like you feel like you're brought into other cultures. And anytime I've gone overseas and I've met other religious groups, I
Mm.
see the beauty of them trying to figure things out, because I
Yeah.
never want to be the type of person that's shaming somebody for their cultural beliefs or whatever,
Oh yeah.
but
Yeah.
I want to ask questions so I can understand. Growing up,
Yeah. I'm the same.
I had a diverse community. We had a lot of Mormons. I have a lot of Mormon friends out in California. We disagree on a lot of things, but there's certain things that I'm also like, that's awesome that they do this. They're really good at this. You'll
Yeah.
never meet a Mormon who isn't willing to, take off the shirt on their back and give it to you. They're very servant driven. And but there's other groups too where I've just seen things. And then for me as a mission doing ministry where I've gone overseas, I've had people, they put these, flowers over you. Like literally, I've got photos of me with like 30 flowers wrapped around me, like Hawaiian leis. And they said, thank you for visiting us all the way from America. Like they think it's this great thing. And I'm thinking, let me give you these flowers back. But then it would be culturally insensitive. So I have to take the
Yeah.
flowers for the whole trip. Anyway, so I think George does have this wide gamut approach in his storytelling. But I don't know if he even fully had it defined. Like, I don't think he ever walked in saying, this is a Christian or this is a Buddhist thing. I think he saw, you know, uh, the ability that this force could be and used it to be a part of a story. Because I think what most of us all love about Star Wars is we connect with the simplistic values that it has.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the farm boy looking for an adventure. It's the princess who's has this deep loyalty for justice when people are being struck down. You have this a scoundrel who has the ability to be swayed by money, but then you find out he has a heart, and then the wise old
Yeah.
mentor. Like all of those things are appealing, and you can find those in every religious group. I can go to the church and find people that are a scoundrel, that their heart of gold is seen, or somebody that believes in injustice, that we need to stop the injustices of the world, or you see this young humble person that's rising up and they just want to bring good to the world. And to me, that's where you start seeing life
Yeah.
connections with this film. And I talk to some people and they're like, Lito, you're crazy that you like Star Wars that much. And I'm like, no, like I've thought through all these elements because it's my favorite story um, ever in media, in film. The Bible's my favorite story. I want to clarify, but I Star Wars, and I just see a lot of neat connections that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
I kind of get you know how Gene Roddenberry with Star Trek, he kind of brings the whole world together.
Yep.
I mean, it's the first time, a lot of first in that show where you've got a Russian there, and the time that he did this was pretty intense here in the
Oh,
United
yeah.
States to be doing stuff like that. And I think maybe this was George's way of being able to unite people as well by taking little bits and pieces. But I also think it falls back to, and just keeping this short, is like my concept of spirituality. Like most of these religions are all very similar in the fact that you live a good life, you treat people well, and those kind of underlying tones. And I think it was, like we said, that you can't really pin it down to anything
No.
specific. I will try to pin down the Jedi a little bit in a
Yeah.
minute, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
So
It is a tricky one, but what I will say as well is the day and age of which Star Wars has come out originally, right the way back in the land of the dinosaurs. No offense to you two. You know, you, you haven't got the internet. Now, the reason I bring up this point is obviously this clip was what 99, 2000 ish for Phantom Menace. The internet's probably almost sort of really getting out there. You imagine now if Star Wars was a clean slate and it was getting released, let's say next week. A New Hope. I think there'd be a lot more criticism about the Force and religion, personally, purely because of people's views. And at the minute, with it's getting a lot of hate, Star Wars, for the wrong reasons. And I just think at this moment in time, it's nicely placed because it's already embedded in society, so to speak. It's not. How can I put it? It's not like a foreign entity. Whereas back then, I think, because it's sci-fi, it's religion, I don't think people really take things as serious back then as they do now, in my opinion. Does that make sense, what I'm getting at?
I mean, for me, yeah, because I was a young kid and now I'm older and I'm diving into this and we have life experience and stuff like that. I would be curious as to someone who was like my age when that movie
Mm.
came out, what they thought, what they saw. I mean, I know people were just blown away by this new movie that had never seen anything like it before. So,
Yeah, that's it. I think we take
maybe,
a lot of things for granted.
yeah. Mhm.
I don't. I always wonder. I remember being trying to think of what other film is even close to it of our time. Yeah, The Matrix, I think, it was in
I
around
was
that
about to
time,
say.
98, 99. I can't remember when it came out. It came out in 98, right? The Matrix?
I
Anyways,
will tell you in a second.
I just recall that had that, whoa, what did I just
Yeah.
watch factor? I
I
remember I had to
was
sneak in
thinking after that
because
movie.
it was actually rated R, I think, and I had to pretend to be my youth pastor's son to get in. So I think there's a sin I have to still get appeased by God from on that. But anyways, so I went and saw The Matrix, and I remember wanting to see it again and again and again, just because there was so much that took place. But
Yeah.
with streaming today, I mean, the new Superman and Lois TV show came out, and because I got 4 kids, I've started it and turned it off like 7 times because I can't just get through one episode without having to take care of
Yeah.
my kids. But anyways, it's one of those things too where the Star Wars community didn't have VHS. They didn't have a means to say, "Oh, we can watch home video."
Yeah.
It was a big deal when the VCR came out. So I'm just thinking, for all of those things to be taken in, where they could be mass dialogue and unpacking of a film like there is
Hmm.
today. I mean, almost every film that I'm about to go see, I kind of look and see what it's about before I take my kids. I'm just kind of
Yeah.
one of those parents, and not opposed to them seeing certain things, but if it's something I don't necessarily agree with, I want to dialogue with it with
Yeah.
them. And I think Star Wars has always had that ability because we're still talking about it all these years later. But
Yeah.
back in that era, just talking to other people, I mean, almost every time I mention I'm a big Stars fan, any older person, the next line I go, I remember waiting in the line at 30 years old, and it was quite the show, the whippersnappers, or whatever. But it's neat that it still has such a cultural phenomenon of connection for
Yeah.
people, and
Yeah.
yeah, and the spiritual religious side of it's fascinating. The Force just has this
Got hold.
mysteriousness. Yeah, yeah, it just draws you in.
Yeah.
And how many
Does.
of us didn't try to reach for something with
We
our
still
hand?
do. We still
Still
do.
do it.
Every time you walk through those shopping mall doors or whatever, those
Yeah,
automatic
every
doors,
time I go to
everyone
the
does it.
mall, every
100%.
time my kids now, my 7-year-old daughter walks up and she does that because I've done it every day of her life when we go to Target or
Yeah.
something.
I
And
still,
it
I
feels
still, I still
good.
try the Jedi mind tricks with a wife. You will let me go to the pub. Doesn't
You
work.
will let me
Doesn't
play
work.
video games.
But
You
yeah.
will let me play video games.
Well, that is a excellent segue because we've kind of talked about Star Wars, the movie, the franchise. And I mean, we could sit there and we could talk about it, dive deeper into it, but we'll stay surface level now. But the Force itself, because I think that's where a lot of this comes from. And the question is, what is the Force? And Jack, you kind of answered that too. You said you thought it was an ultimate power. Is it
Mm,
a power? What does that power come from? Um, you know, what does it represent? Because we have in Rogue One, most people probably don't dive into Star Wars quite as much as some of us, but like Rogue One's the first time we get anything like religious with the Jedi, with
yeah.
Jeddah, right? Like
Yeah.
Jeddah City. Um, and you've got the Guardians of the Wills and all that kind of stuff, and the Church of the Force. And then of course we've got the High Republic initiative out there. And in phase 2 of that, they go way back.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
have things like the Path of the Open Hand, and you have a bunch of different religions, all like them. They have like a council of different
Yeah.
religions on
Yeah.
Jeddah and they all are worshiping the Force. They all call it maybe by a different name. Sound familiar? And so just different things like that. So what is the Force? Because then you have these different groups that worship it, that use it. You have the Path of the Open Hand. They turns into the bad guy. Spoiler alert. And then of course you have the Sith. You have the Bendu, one of my favorite Star Wars characters. I think he changes canon in a way that people haven't really dove into
Mm,
yet. But what do you guys think
yeah.
about the Force? Like, where does it come from? What is like that's the Jedi harness it, the Sith harness it, the Bendu harnesses it, and these people are all different places. And in those comics, in those other books, those other groups use it, but not quite at the level as the Jedi and Sith. But what are you guys'
Yeah.
thoughts on the Force
Yeah.
itself?
I sort of touched on it with it being more of a power or a higher force
Mm-hmm.
than a religion. So to me, I've always imagined the force being like, what's it called now? Telekinesis, not being able to move stuff with the mind and stuff like that. So to me, it's like a power that left unchecked could have catastrophic, if not devastating effects, aka the Sith. Uh, that's my view on the Force. Essentially, it's just it's a telekinesis power that people have got within them, whether it's a natural ability to harness it or a forced ability to to force it out of yourself. Yeah, that's my take on it.
Well, I was thinking about the Christian faith. There's a thing called spiritual gifts that we talk about that people have different, whether it's God, it is a God given gift, is what our belief is. But it's one of those things where some religious Christian groups, different than probably the Protestant movement, will believe that you can learn these gifts. And what we're studying in the Bible, it actually talks about it's not something you learn, it's something you're given. And
Mm,
whenever I've thought about the Force, I kind of like this idea, but I also didn't like when you have 3 films that tell you about the Force, then you can make up whatever you want of it because there's
Mhm.
a lot of information. And as each film and every, tiny little storyline comes out, I'm even like a big fan of that new Lego show that just came out. I'm forgetting the name. I built the Dark Falcon right here. I got to find it. There it is. I'm pointing to it. I wanted that for my 41st birthday so bad because it just looked really cool. But they even do some new things where, time has been changed because of a Lego brick. And it sounds so silly, but it was actually a really good story. And we're watching. There's Darth Jar Jar and there's the White Vader. This is just the coolest Lego figure you're ever going to see. I also have the Jedi
yeah, it's
Vader
a
in
good
my
one.
office that it came with the Infinity series. Anyways, it's just super cool. But I love the idea that um, in the minimalist version of Star Wars, we kind of filled in
Yeah.
the blanks. And as
Hmm.
we've had more Star Wars material, the definition of it almost makes it solidified into no, this is what it is. And there's not as much wiggle room as there used to be
Mm,
for I think the Star Wars perspective of the Force and all that. For instance, Last Jedi ends kind of giving us the impression that it's not just the chosen ones that can have the Force. It ends with the idea that anyone can have the Force. And even after Rise of Skywalker, they allude in the film to Finn. He's like, I got to tell you something, Ray, when they're going in the sand and everybody's,
oh,
is he going to love you? What's he going to say? It's a
killed
little
me.
cheesy. Yeah, I know. And they kind of revealed it in one of the Legos Disney Plus cartoons that Finn was feeling that he had the Force, and they start showing that kind of imagery in the Lego cartoons. So I was like, okay, I'm not opposed. Like I like it from a Christian perspective. I like the idea that hey, we all can harness the power of God. Like we could all. Now it's not a magic genie we rub the lamp, but it's this ability to say I can have these spiritual gifts and honor him with it and bless other people because that's our kind of 2 tenets is that we love God and we
Yeah.
love people well. So the
Yeah.
Force is what
Okay.
it is, but I just have as time progresses, a differing view, I think, than I did of the Force, maybe at 15, 16 years old, loving Star Wars. And maybe even my
Mm,
religious views, I mean, they tend to get redefined as I get older as well. Things that I maybe have taught on a text 20 years ago, I look at it, I'm like, I don't know if I understood that completely. And now I have a different view on it. So, anyways.
nice.
That would
Nice.
be an excellent topic, actually. The more Star Wars we got, is it getting? Because you look at Ahsoka series with Sabine, right? She has no power, and then it snaps, and of course, you can like that or hate that, whichever.
Mhm.
I know I was rooting for, but so yeah, that'd be a pretty good topic, I think. So, all right, well, Jack, you have anything else to add before I play this
No,
clip? All
more
right,
than
we'll
happy.
just
Yeah.
just gonna watch Yoda here, and then we're gonna dive into some other things.
About my size, do you? And where you should not. For my ally is the Force. And a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the Force around you. Here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship.
So there
Oh
was our
man.
really our first. I still get goosebumps. I've seen that
Yeah.
scene a million times,
God.
but that's kind of our first, like, would you want to say, spiritual look at the Force? I guess
Mm,
kind of what maybe guides us is, I don't know. How do you guys feel about that scene? you know.
Here's what I'll say. I have to bring it in connection to A New Hope for me, because the line for the bookends of why I love Star Wars is Luke's line, "I want to go with you to Alderaan and learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father." I'm like, ooh, that just like that resonates with me. And then he closes it, "No, your Highness, you failed. I a Jedi like my father before me." But so I feel like there's a religious undertone in A New Hope with the Force, but it's with Yoda that we start getting it kind of defined. And I would like in those moments of Yoda's speech, it's like I see God as the Force, my perspective of it, and it's a powerful ally. But I think as Star Wars, like I said earlier, progresses, um, you almost get more definitions for it, and it could be great, or you can also go, I don't know if I like that so much. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's hard to say.
Yeah. What about you,
Yeah.
Jack?
Yeah, that scene, it just pulls on my heartstrings massively. Like, I don't know what it is about Yoda. I absolutely love him. Yeah, again, forgive me for using a bit of a reference, but I do see Yoda as sort of like a priest of the Force. You alluded to it, like in A New Hope, we get little snippets of the Force with the Jedi mind trick stuff. Willing the shot to go down the Death Star, etc., etc. But really now at this point in the Star Wars series, you're really getting into the nitty gritty of what the Star Wars is. Because I think one of the biggest questions that came out of A New Hope when it was released is what is the Force? People still weren't 100% what it was, and the mystery that surrounds it. But yeah, like just Yoda describing. You need to get Yoda in one of your Sunday sessions, I think, because honestly, he blows my mind. Even how many times I've seen that scene.
I
Um,
just love the fact that Frank Oz does his voice in Miss Piggy. I mean, that's in itself
yeah,
entertaining.
yeah.
I,
It's just
I will
it's
say
just
it's fascinating because there's all throughout Star Wars, it resonates with us, and that's where I think the
mm,
spirituality that we all kind of long
yeah,
for or want to connect to, we're interested. Like, okay, tell me more.
yeah,
What I think modern media fails at, I'm trying to recall the name, Jupiter Ascending or something. I think it had
yeah. The film Channing
they almost
Tatum.
yeah, they did too much. Like they're trying to
Yeah,
explain everything, and it's like less is more. If a
yeah,
storyteller can help you see, and once again, George Lucas got this right, is in not all his films, but in most of his films, if he focuses on the character or the human condition, I mean, that's what we're all
mm,
relating to. But the bells and whistles or the lipstick on the picture is the force. It's lightsabers, it's the battles, but I think we really find the commonality and even the spirituality side of it through just what
yeah,
people are going through.
yeah. What about you, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for me to separate, and I kind of go back and forth, like we said. Like,
Mm,
um, I wonder if there's more to the story, and I think too sometimes though, like the world we live in now versus the world that when this was created in 1977. I mean, I'm almost 50, and I was born in 76. I know, and
How
and
old's
I see it
Jack?
in my
How old's
class.
Jack? I didn't get his age.
He's like 12.
Okay,
How
12.
old are you, Jack?
Brilliant. I'm 34.
34. Oh, you're a baby. Okay, I'm in the middle of
Yeah,
both.
he's
Yeah,
just a baby. But then I see it with my students, and they're not all of them, but a lot of them, their imagination has kind of been taken away from them because of
yeah,
all the stuff that we have. So,
yeah,
and it's like you've said, Lito, like the more Star, and I've never thought, this is why I'm kind of like racking this through my brain right now as you said that as another topic. Like, is the more Star Wars we get, is that almost diluting it because we're getting everything explained to us? So,
And it's with a lot of even the concept of AI. I like it. It's interesting to me where you can say, "Hey, make me a picture of this." But I think the art of it, I'm to me, theater and performing arts is an art form, and what is created from that can be beautiful. Last December, I had a dream come true. I got to perform on stage with Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It
oh
Anyway?
wow,
And it
very
was
cool.
for an hour and a half, I was on stage with him, and, like, what we created that night will never be seen. They don't record it. They tell you not to record it, which I'm still a little jealous of. I got a photo with him afterwards, so I have that to hang on to. But, you know, AI or even modern day, I don't want to say modern day filmmakers, but studios appear that they're taking the heart, soul, and even spirituality out of a lot of films because they're just wanting to know what's going to be the cash grab that makes a good film. Like,
Yeah.
I'll throw this out there and, go see it at your own discretion. Wild Robot was one of the best films I'd seen in a long time.
I've
And
heard that so far.
it had an Iron Giant vibe. And if you've seen Iron Giant, like, yeah. And for me, there's certain films where you can feel the heart of it. And you're like, that is a good story. I want to know who wrote it or directed it or created, this concept or that, because
Mm,
even George Lucas, whatever his religious personal views are, I think it draws people in. The Force is fascinating, and draws all of us to want to know a little bit more. Maybe a
yeah.
little bit more when we don't really need to know a little bit more, but you're not gonna not be interested in saying, "Well, tell me more."
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. It's yeah. I think sorry, Jimmy. I think also you sort of touched on it as well, mate. Like, and you did as well, Pastor Lito. It resonates with everybody. The Force does, and like you said, Jimmy, because we're getting so much of it, it's diluting it. I think what people can get angry at or disheartened or upset at is if something is described to them or explained to them, and they're like, "I don't like that. That's not what I think." And that's normal in life. When people have opinions and people don't
Oh
like other
yeah.
people's opinions, it's the same sort of perspective. I think Disney are coming out, not coming, but if Disney has said something, for example, the Force is this and this, 9 times out of 10 there's going to be people that don't agree, so it's instantly going to upset people. I think that's what sort of is happening to an extent with so much Star Wars coming out so quickly, because people aren't quite thinking about it as deeply, or not even as deeply, just not thinking to an extent.
Maybe having an opportunity to process what they saw,
Mm,
like I think sometimes a story just needs to sit with us. I
yeah.
thought Marvel did an excellent job with the first 21 films of Marvel. And the other ones, there's a couple that I liked for various reasons. But Endgame had this crescendo that I don't know if we're going to see in any film for some time. Like that was remarkable.
That was the
And
Empire Strikes Back of that
yeah,
day.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And now we have, Star Wars is coming out, and I liked Ahsoka, and I liked Obi-Wan.
Mm,
Um, Boba Fett kind of, I think I enjoyed it because I like Star Wars, and you see certain characters, you're like, oh, that's neat. But the disappointing fact is the mystery of Boba Fett was
yeah.
beautiful. And now that we had all these things answered, and I've met him as an actor, as a human being at one of the Stars conventions, and he does a great job with Boba and Django and all that. I enjoyed
Mm,
it,
mm,
but I felt like Disney, I'm gonna blame Disney, they forced Boba Fett to be the good guy instead of the, anti-hero that I think he is. He's a
yeah.
bounty hunter, he goes out and
Yeah. He's a
whoever's
cool
gonna
bad
pay
guy,
him is
weren't
gonna
he?
pay him. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
I got off from spirituality. I apologize.
Oh, it's all right. We're all about just tangents here, anyways. I do have one last thing. We'll talk a little bit about the Jedi, and then we'll probably wrap this up. But I found this. I teach in my class, I teach ancient world history. So we talk about India, and we talk about these different places, and China and Japan as they're coming up, and we talk about some different religions. I'm not trying to influence anybody. I want to make that clear. I just try to explain that there's other things out there in the world. And I came across this in my teaching, and the Noble Eightfold Path of Buddhism. And it starts out, know the truth, and then you
Yep.
have free your mind of evil, say nothing that hurts. I'm going to get that out of my way here so I can see all of it. Work for the good of others, respect life, resist evil, practice meditation, control your thoughts, and then back to know the truth. And when I
Yeah.
first time I read that, and this was probably 4 or 5 years ago, I've been teaching this class now. Any guesses what the first thing that popped into my head was? What
It's a
group of
Jedi
people?
Order, isn't it? It's a Jedi Order
Yeah,
code.
the Jedi Order. I was like, the Jedi Order are Buddhist. Yeah, that all makes sense. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to show that to show, like, we've talked a lot about Christianity too, but there's other things out there that they're grabbing from. How do you guys see the Jedi? Are they warrior monks? Are they, you know, I guess, and also it comes from how you view the Force as well, right? So, like,
Yeah.
Pastor Lee, are you going to start, fighting evil with a lightsaber, and yeah, there you go. So, how do you guys see the Jedi Order? And we'll just stick with the Jedi. We'll keep it simple today. Well, simple. I don't think it's a very simple question, but
I think it depends on the era of Star Wars, knowing kind of its history, where you do have these noble warriors at one point.
Mm.
And there's a correlation to, even the Christian faith. I don't think the Crusades were appropriate. I think they could have gone about it a different way. But the idea of like forcing the religion, I mean, in some ways, maybe we wouldn't have modern day Christianity, because even my view, I'm not attacking Catholicism or anything like that. But when I study the Bible, I want us to get to like the first century church. That's my objective. Let's understand it through their lens and see how it applies to us today. And yet there's this, couple thousand years of history where,
Mm.
there's certain religious behaviors that have a black eye. I mean, there's people I love and looked up to for years, and they have a scandalous behavior or whatever. Maybe they all turned into Count Dooku's, whatever you want to call them. But in regards to like the Jedi, what is Episode One's opening line? The Jedi ambassadors, or something like that. There's a line in there about ambassadors, which I like because Bible refers to Christians as ambassadors. We're supposed to be messengers and not necessarily, out to force people to do. I've got an
Yeah.
open hand about religious views. I want to love people, and if they want to be a part of it, I welcome them. But I don't in any way want to grab a Bible and hit people over the head with it or force my belief system. I don't think then it
Yeah.
doesn't become an authentic faith decision, but rather I felt strong armed or I felt forced into this. But in regards to the Star Wars view, I love the Rogue One. I thought did a good job kind of bringing it back to that, these religious undertones of the Jedi and all that. It was
Yeah.
fun, it
Yeah.
was neat, and the wills and all that. But there's just this heavy look on it where you see similar principles. Obviously, when you read those, I was thinking of the fruits of the spirit. You love, peace,
Mm.
patience, kindness, self-control, and all those. There's 9 of those, so it's close to the 8. But there's other behaviors that you find in people that are selfish behaviors that don't line up with, positive encouraging one another.
Yeah.
And are we giving life to people? Or are we taking it away? And I think that's where kind of the Jedi motif is that they were always their intent was to care about people. And if we're going to take it a layer deeper with even the fall of the Jedi, there was a lot of um, arrogance. I don't think it was right for them to not have attachments, like a loved
Mm.
one. I think Anakin been in a place where he could have said, "Hey, I love this person, and we want to spend life together. Can we make this work?" And there wasn't such rigidity through the temple and the Jedi Order. Perhaps there could have stopped, the whole massacre of the Jedi's. But I don't know. Maybe I overthinking it, but I like to ponder on those little things and think that there could have been more to it had they not become so indoctrinated on their um, rituals rather than their
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. And that segues lovely right into my view. That Acolyte does a perfect uh, outlook on the Jedi Order in my view. Remember how gobsmacked we were, Jimmy, when we was watching it, and we were like, the Jedi aren't as clean cut as they make out to be. Like Pastor Lito said there, again, rightly so. The Jedi come across with all these good intentions, but really, are they good intentions? Is it a good idea just to nick someone's kid because they can move a few objects? Little things like that. So for me, and I think, like I said, it's one of the awesome things about the Acolyte. You get a different view on the Jedi. Um, yeah, it's just it is a strange one, but yeah, I think it's like a forced thing to begin with. The whole Jedi, even with the High Republic stuff. I've just started reading or listening to Temptation of the Force, and there's things there with Elzar and is it
Avar.
Avar, and like you said again, basically, Anakin just needed that outlet. He just needed someone's shoulder to cry on. All these emotions in these Jedi, they're all they're all contained, and that's like normal people. That's what, again, Star Wars can relate to people. You know, if no one's got someone to talk to, for example, that emotion is going to build up. It's going to lead into anger, to hate, to suffering, all that good stuff. You know, so again, it just resonates. So yeah, for me, it's more of a full forced cult. But that's probably why I prefer Siths, I think, because they have the freedom. But yeah, that's my view on that.
I think you bring up good points with the acolyte and stuff. Like, you see Chimera talking about his like Lord of the Dark Side and the things he was saying to Maid. But I've said this on the show multiple times. The Jedi are their own worst enemies because they can never talk to each other, because if they don't say the right thing, they're going to be, viewed as like they're like, I know it's
Hounded.
the Clone Wars, but when Yoda starts hearing Qui-Gon for the first time, they all think he's lost it, or these different things like that. I think the Jedi Order is flawed, but to act like you're perfect and pure, there's no way any kind of being can make the right decision. You make the right decision for the moment, but then there's always repercussions or things like that. So yeah, I don't think that the Jedi are.
Religious piety is a real thing where that's why it's so important to have humility in all aspects of life. No matter what you believe, humility is going to get you a lot further. One of our, my favorite verses in all the Bible, Philippians 2, says that we should not consider our own interests before the interests of others, because when we think of others first, it has a way to kind of allow us to have the right attitude, the right perspective, and not allow that selfish tendency to kind of overtake us. And it's hard. I mean, and it happens in so many ways. Like, I want to be the first one. I'm in a church where I have to make decisions with a team, and I want to make the right decision. I tell my guys, I got guys that are much older than me. They're my Jedi council, and elders is what we call them. And I go to the guys, I go, listen, I got an idea. It's probably stupid. Shoot holes in it. Let's make it a better idea. And the guys are awesome. They share, they tell me, and then I have to execute it. I don't feel like I'm Yoda on that board. I'm probably more of an Obi-Wan, but I have to be the guy who says to everybody else, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is the direction we're going to go.
Yeah.
And I think every religious group in the leadership role, if we're not careful, pride and arrogance is going to be the thing that tears us apart.
And it does for the Jedi, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, Jack, do you want to bring us home?
Yeah, I'll bring us home. Definitely a super interesting topic. I do hope all the listeners, again, anyone that's heard this, any feedback, comments, whack them in the comment section or email, and also Explore the Force as always. One thing I'm going to leave all of us on, we're not going to answer, it's just a little snippet for us then, is how does Yoda get it so right? How does Yoda get it so right? In my view, he's the perfect Jedi. We don't really see a bad decision, so to speak, but how does Yoda get it so right? So, as always, again, massive thank you to Pastor Lito for joining us, taking the time out. Again, super appreciate your time. As always, we wrap it up with a little quote from anything Star Wars. I'll start us off, and then we'll come straight to you, Pastor Lito, and finish off with Jimmy. So from me, kid, I've flown from one side of this galaxy to the other. I've seen a lot of strange stuff, but I've never seen anything to make me believe that there's one all-powerful force controlling everything. There's no mystical energy field that controls my destiny.
Very nice.
Over to you, Lito. What have you got?
Obi-Wan Kenobi. In my experience, there is no such thing as luck.
Very nice. I did find this the other day, and it's from Isaiah 30, 21. It says, whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way. Walk in it. So I just thought that was like, that just kind of popped up. I was like blown away by the fact that we're doing this. I was like, yes, this is the way. But for all of us, again, Pastor Lito, thank you so much for joining us. I hope we'll get you back on here. We need to have another lunch. That was awesome. And for all of us, we have spoken. We'll see you guys next week.
See you later.
See you guys. Thanks.